All right, let's just get right into it. What does it actually mean to have faith? So often we think about it as a destination, a set of beliefs you finally arrive at. But what if faith isn't a destination at all? What if it's a journey, a command to just leave the map behind and step out into the total unknown? Today, we're going to dive into one of the most epic stories about that very thing, the journey of a man named Abram.
I want you to just put yourself in his shoes for a second. You're 75 years old, okay? You're settled. You've got a house, a family. Your whole life is built in this really advanced city called Ur. And then you hear this voice, this call. And it's not just a suggestion like, hey, maybe you should move. It's a command to uproot everything, your country, your relatives, your entire identity, for a place you've never even heard of. A place that, get this, isn't even named. And yeah, that's where this whole wild ride begins, with this completely uncharted call. See, Abram was given this massive, world-changing promise that he'd become a great nation, a blessing to the whole world, but he wasn't given a plan. He wasn't given a map, no coordinates for his GPS, nothing.
And the command itself, it's so simple, but it's also incredibly deep. I will show you. That's an instruction that runs on 100% trust. It's basically saying, don't trust the map, trust the map maker. Everything, and I mean everything, hinges on these four little words. So this brings us to the very first big lesson of faith we see here. Obedience often has to come before you get the full picture. Abram didn't negotiate. He didn't ask for a detailed itinerary or a 5-year plan. The story just says he packed up his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all their stuff, and he went. He just stepped out. So as Abram starts this journey, it's interesting, right? It's not this mad dash to get to some finish line. It's actually a path where he's constantly stopping to build altars, to worship, to connect with God. But, no journey of faith is without its bumps in the road. And this path of worship was about to hit a pretty big one, a test that would reveal what was really going on in his heart. Okay, so things get a little tense. His crew and his nephew Lot's crew, their shepherds, they start bickering over resources. Now listen, Abram's the elder, he's the patriarch. He totally has the right to say, I get first pick. But he doesn't. He does the complete opposite. He lets Lot choose. And Lot, well, he looks with his eyes, and he snags what looks like the absolute prime real estate, the green, well-watered Jordan Valley, leaving Abram with, well, what looked like the leftovers. And boom, there it is, lesson number 2. Faith lets go of the steering wheel. It's this deep, gut-level trust that the God who called you is more than able to take care of you, even when you willingly give away what looks like a sure thing. Abram was trusting the promise maker way more than the promising-looking land. But man, then comes the really, really hard part of pretty much any journey, the waiting. And we're not talking weeks or months, we're talking decades pass. The promise of a son, the absolute cornerstone of this great nation, is just silent, unfulfilled. Abram and Sarai are getting really old, and that powerful call from God starts to feel like a distant memory, and doubt starts to creep in. So in a moment of just total desperation, Abram cries out to God, basically saying, what good are all your promises if I'm going to die childless? And God's response is just breathtaking. He doesn't pull out a calendar and give him a date. He gives him a vision. He takes him outside under this vast night sky and just says, look up, try to count the stars. That's how many descendants you're going to have. Okay, this part right here, this is the absolute game changer, the hinge on which this whole story turns. The text says, Abram believed the Lord. And this wasn't some passive, oh, I hope so kind of thing. No way. This was an active, conscious choice. He looked at the reality of his own aging body, he looked at God's impossible promise, and he chose to trust the promise. In this timeline, it really puts that belief into perspective. Just look at the time passing. He gets the call at 75. Then, decades of waiting. And you can see where they got impatient, right, with the birth of Ishmael? That was them trying to take matters into their own hands, to kind of help God out. And, well, we all know how that usually goes. It just made things way more complicated. And then, finally, when Abraham is 100 years old, it's so far past the point of possibility that it's not even funny. And that's when Isaac, the promised son, is born. His name literally means laughter, because the whole idea was just laughable. But it happened. The God of the impossible came through. So, happy ending, right? The journey's over. Or was it?
Because it turns out the deepest, most terrifying test wasn't in the long, long wait for the promise. It was in the potential of losing it after it had finally been given. This is the final exam, the absolute crucible of Abraham's faith.
Can you even begin to wrap your head around hearing those words? And just notice the weight of every single phrase. Take your son. Okay, your only son. Oof. The one God himself promised. Isaac, whom you love. It's like God acknowledges the depth of the love before asking for the ultimate surrender. To sacrifice Isaac was to sacrifice the entire promise. It would make the whole journey seem like a joke.
The tension as they're climbing that mountain is just unbearable. Isaac is carrying the wood for his own sacrifice, and he turns and asks this completely innocent but absolutely heart-shattering question. He knows the drill for worship. He knows they're missing something pretty important. And that question just hangs in the air, pushing Abraham's faith to its absolute limit. And Abraham's reply is one of the most profound statements of faith you will ever hear. God himself will provide the lamb, my son. Think about that. He has no idea how. He cannot see a solution, but a lifetime of walking this uncharted path has taught him one unshakable thing. The God who calls is the God who provides. And at the very last second, an angel stops his hand. And there, caught in some bushes, is a ram, the provision, the lamb Abraham declared would be there by faith. And he names that place Jehovah-Jireh, the Lord will provide. And this is the ultimate lesson, isn't it? Faith discovers that the God who makes the promise is a much greater prize than the promise itself. He was the real destination of the journey all along.
So you see, Abraham's journey didn't just end on that mountain. It actually became the beginning of something that would echo through all of human history. His crazy, radical trust set off ripples that would change everything, for everyone.
From that act of trust came Isaac. From Isaac came Jacob, who became a nation. From that nation came the kingly line of David. And if you follow that line all the way down, you find that the original promise, that all peoples on earth would be blessed through him, finds its ultimate fulfillment in one final lamb, a lamb provided by God for everyone.
In the end, Abraham's entire life becomes this perfect, living definition of faith. It's the solid assurance of things you hope for, the absolute conviction of realities you can't yet see. And that just kind of leaves the question with us, doesn't it? What's your uncharted territory? What's that place God is calling you to? And are you willing to take that first, single, obedient step into the unknown?